Welcome, my friends, to another showing of Issues of the Day. Issues of the Day, as you know from this series we've been filming, is about information. It's about good information. It's based upon the premise that when people understand good information, then they make informed decisions. And what we try and do on this show is A, take up some complex issues and provide the type of information you need so that you can make informed decisions. And B, we try to bring you guests who can provide information about their programs, the services they provide to the community. So today I'm absolutely honored to have two old friends. One of them I've known for an awful long time. You notice I didn't say old friend, Karen.
Yes.
And the other one I've had the pleasure of knowing for 5 years. And I've got Joanne Moore, the director of the Duxbury Council on Aging, and her assistant, Linda Hayes, who's the assistant director of the Duxbury Council on Aging. Before I begin, Karen and Joanne, I want to say I have something in common with both of them, and they both know it. On the first one, Joanne has the last name Moore that is my mother's maiden name. So I suspect that my mother and your husband are perhaps somehow related.
They could be.
In the chain. Yeah. It's a great name, and when my oldest son, Ryan, was born, I wanted his middle name to be Moore in honor of my mother, and I got overruled, so it didn't happen. But I think that would have been a wicked cool name, a wicked cool middle name.
Especially in Massachusetts.
Especially in Massachusetts. And Karen Hayes, Karen and I went Linda and I went to, I'm so sorry, went to college together back in the, a long time ago.
Thank you for saying that.
You're very welcome.
Not saying that.
And I often like to say that I knew Karen had good judgment years and years ago when I asked her to dance in the pub and she said, no way. So I knew that you were smart even back then. So I want to welcome the two of you here today.
Thank you.
And what I'd love to talk about in the next few minutes, Linda and Joanne, I'd like to talk about the work you do at the Council on Aging. I've been so privileged to have been involved in your organization in a lot of different ways. Before we begin, I'll tell you how I met. I was running for election, and I had a 5-week election. And I knew Duxbury, I probably wouldn't win, but I should take a shot. So a week before the election, I just walked in. And I introduced myself, and there were a bunch of seniors sitting there drinking coffee and eating their Danish. And I said, hi, I'm Tom Coulter. I'm running for state representative. And one of the ladies said, listen, if you leave now, you get my vote. If you stay too long, you'll probably lose it. And that's how I knew that was my kind of place. So let's start by asking, I'd like to ask both of you individually, Karen and Joanne, you're doing God's work. You're doing it with the most vulnerable part of our population. Before you talk about what you do, I'd like you to talk about why you do it and what brought you to it.
Sure.
Let's start with you, Joanne.
I have a master's degree in lifelong learning education, and I worked at Cure. I started there as a volunteer coordinator, fell in love, and continued working in activities and became the director of the senior center. So I feel fortunate to come to work every day.
So you had your beginning right there at the COA.
Right.
Where you're now the director.
Exactly.
Wow. And how long ago was that? Did you start there? Before
9
the new
years.
building?
No, right when the new building opened.
No kidding.
Yeah. So it's been a great honor to be there the whole time. So.
Well, you do such a wonderful job there.
Well,
and Linda, how about you? How did you come to the Council on Aging?
For me, it was a second career more, and it was a great opportunity to work locally and to contribute, and I loved working with older adults. I had been involved in training and education, so it just seemed natural. I felt like I belonged there. I really wanted to work there once it came to that, so I've been there almost 7 years.
Wow, you're real veterans.
Yes.
I will say to both of you that when I walk through the door there, I feel like I'm welcome.
Yeah.
And so I know that you make the residents, the citizens of the area. And it's not just Duxbury folks.
No.
I've met people there from all towns.
Yes. Yeah. In our lifelong learning courses, there's people from 16 different
Imagine
towns,
that.
as far as Watertown.
Imagine that.
So that's really impressive for us.
Well, I'd like to ask you the most commonly asked question, and perhaps the source of the greatest misunderstandings.
Sure.
What is the source of your funding?
Our funding comes from a variety of sources. We receive 73% of our funding from the town of Duxbury. We receive about 12% from GATRA, and GATRA has been a godsend for us. Most people don't realize that the loop service that goes from Plymouth, Kingston, Marshfield, Duxbury, Marshfield is underwritten by the Cherry Sheet, but $63,000 comes back to the Council on Aging to provide our transportation. So that's daily transportation for the elders, as well as transportation to medical appointments. And starting later this month, we're going to start a long-distance service to help seniors get to medical appointments in Boston and the Brockton VA. So we're thrilled about that, and we're thrilled to have that partnership with GATRA.
Right.
Then we also receive 9% of our funding from our friends, and I am so thankful. Our friends are very friendly, and the community has been so generous to us. We're able to employ 3 employees through their generous gifts.
3 employees, full-time employees?
Yes. And then we receive a formula grant, which you're well aware of, and that employs 2 staff people, one who leads our social day program for people with Alzheimer's disease, and the other person assists Linda with the activities.
Well, it's really exciting when you walk through the door there at just how many activities, Linda, there are there. Maybe you could tell us about how, do you talk to other Council on Aging directors and assistant directors who come up with activities in their program, and do you share notes? How do you keep it so fresh?
That does happen, certainly. In fact, I think maybe more often they do call us. We do have an awful lot going on that's varied because we do try to meet the different needs of the community, whether it's art and leisure or the successful lifelong learning that's a little bit more high-level education for people who are retired and some who are not, who have the time and the desire to continue to learn and to come into the center to do that.
What's notable when you walk into the Duxbury Council on Aging is the vitality of the people hanging around there. There's a lot of high-level debate.
Yes.
There's a lot of laughing. There's some joke telling. You can go in one room and they're doing physical fitness. You can go in another room, they're doing Weight Watchers, and of course that's after they have their coffee in Danish.
You're not supposed to tell.
Which I think is, and that's where the jokes come from.
Right.
And that's where the razzing comes from. But you walk in and you can't help but feel welcome, and you can't help but feel energized by the activities that are going on there all the time. Now that's not the same in every Council on Aging. I've been giving talks around all Plymouth County over the past 4 months on issues that are important to the state. And a lot of them have been at Council on Aging. And what I find striking about your Council on Aging, it's not that people there are, the mean is younger, because it's pretty much in the same bandwidth. But their involvement and their opinions and their perspectives are so sharp. And I think that's in part, if not in large part, to the way you stimulate them on a regular basis. So let's talk about programs.
Okay.
Not only the fun programs. I won't have to say another thing the rest of this
No.
session.
Where do we start?
Let's talk first about the fun things, and then let's get into the support services that you
Sure.
provide.
Okay. So do you want to start with
sure.
exercise?
Linda, why don't you start with the activities?
Fitness has absolutely been a fairly large component to what we offer. Classes in general, where we have some great instructors who are willing to offer for a nominal fee, usually, anything from some aerobic style, and we've had a successful Zumba class going on from maybe some came in who were 50, 55, and it went up to 90. And they were moving just as well and having a great time to the music. Strength training, yoga. So those are really important to us. And as well some of the health and wellness, where we do have check blood pressure and we do have hearing screenings and things that people do rely on maybe monthly so that they can get in and do that free of charge. Not to mention some of the longer range programs that we've had an opportunity to hold there, which has been a healthy living, to encourage some people to start on an exercise and nutrition-based regimen where maybe they had not before. That went for 6 weeks, I think, or actually no, longer, 10 weeks. Matter of Balance, which was a Grant-based.
It's an evidence-based program. I'm sure you hear that buzzword at the state level. There's 4 evidence-based programs currently being offered at the state level, and we're offering 2 of them at the senior center. One, A Matter of Balance, which helps people with their fear of falling and reducing fall risks in the home. And the other one is Chronic Disease Self-Management. And Linda and I just finished teaching that last week, and it was fabulous. It really helps people of all ages, children, adults, work with the chronic disease that they have and live a healthier life. So
Wow.
it's been great.
We had as good a time teaching it, and it was really more facilitating and just helping them find or hear information that would help them long term with their conditions, whatever it might be. And it was
How about on the more serious, that's the fun side.
well,
and
there
the
was more fun,
functional.
but yes, that is fun.
And how about on the serious side? What would a senior in our community call you for that perhaps they're not particularly comfortable calling about?
Well, our outreach department does deal with seniors confidentially, certainly, who need some assistance, whether it be with health conditions, with their medications, with getting to their medication, with the insurance companies trying to get the medications to them.
Staying safely in their home.
But assessing their needs where they may not feel safe in their home.
Helping them with fuel assistance, food stamps applications.
So what interaction would you have, for instance, with South Shore Housing? Would you work with South Shore Housing?
If someone needed housing, our outreach staff would go to a variety of sources and try to find that senior the most suitable housing to meet their needs. Sometimes when a crisis situation arises, then we would call South Shore Housing and say, okay, this is an emergency situation, an elder needs a home, this is what this person is looking for, and then they'd help us place that senior in a safe environment.
There are also times when the fire department might contact us and say, we have been to this house on more than one occasion, and we think maybe they need some services if you could get involved, which again would usually go to our outreach department if
And a neighbor
we were
could
there.
call, a friend can stop by.
concerned
If
person.
someone's concerned, yeah.
Sure.
You know what, I haven't seen my next door neighbor, would you mind checking on him? It was a hard winter, and so we got calls like that.
One thing I want to share with you that we'll ask you to participate in is my office is sponsoring we're just nailing down the date now, what's called a Social Services Expo, and it's called Reach Out to Your Friends. And what it is we're asking all of the social service departments from Plymouth County
Great.
to come to a central location on a Saturday morning. And we're going to invite people to come there and just walk around the expo like it's a Sunday bazaar or an expo and pick up information very discreetly and ask questions. And it could be on everything from a mortgage foreclosure service, where to get oil, where to get food, where to get social support, social service support, and it's really there is a Plymouth County is rich in resources, not rich in money, but rich in resources in terms of people, both volunteers and privately funded and publicly funded resources that, having been a state rep for 5 years, I'm just now finally understanding the depth of the resources that are out there. As a state rep, you understand day one, as you understand day one, the depth of the problem.
Right.
But I'm now just learning the depth of the resources that are available to solve the problem. And that's why I wanted to conduct an expo that would expose that to anyone that's in great difficulty, that they could come, and it could be almost anything.
And I don't think they even need to be in great difficulty. I think sometimes you just need a little extra help.
Yeah.
We have a social day program for people with Alzheimer's disease, early stage Alzheimer's disease. It's valuable for the person with the disease as well as the caregiver. It's just an extra helping hand to keep someone in their home safe. And that's really what we want to do.
And stimulated at the same time. It's activity-based. It really does benefit them in many different ways.
Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that wonderful? And, you know, it's wonderful of the town of Duxbury to be so supportive.
Right.
I think that's a beautiful thing. Now, not anybody can be a director or an assistant director of the Council on Aging, and not anyone can open their doors and say, we're a Council on Aging. There's a certification that goes with this process.
Right.
Tell us about that.
Well, in 1984, the town of Duxbury, at town meeting, we became an official department. It was a part-time department at that time. In the last 25 years, we've grown into a full-time multi-service agency, meeting the needs of seniors from the age of 60, sometimes earlier, because we have a lot of pre-seniors come to the center, up to over 100. So we're really working with a large age range of people to provide those kind of services and programs for the elders.
And what is the accreditation of this?
Oh,
of the certification
accreditation.
that you're gonna use?
Accreditation. We're nationally accredited senior center. There are 173 in the country out of 15,000 senior centers, so it's a huge accomplishment for us as a senior center, and 10 in the state of Massachusetts. It's a rigorous process that we went through. We looked at every area of our business, because we are kind of like a business, and fine-tune policies, procedures, outcome measures, so that we could run the best senior center possible.
Oh, that's great.
So in 2009, 9, we received accreditation.
We're so excited in Kingston and in Plymouth with two beautiful, brand new COAs.
Right.
And the folks who have managed our COAs in Plymouth and in Kingston have done so in under very difficult circumstances for a long time.
Right.
And yet they have created a real family environment where people feel welcome and services are provided. But I'll tell you, they tell me all the time that they are, whether it's Linda in Kingston or Connie in Plymouth, just how excited they are about the energy that is coming from a brand new building in a new resources with computers that they can work on and classrooms that they can learn in and fitness rooms that they can exercise in. And I think what happens when that happens is it attracts a whole new group of folks who may have just recently retired
Right.
and who have a lot to give,
Right.
but they don't view themselves as having to or wanting to go into a council on aging until they get there once.
Right.
Right.
And then they say, wow, I can
It's
meet some wonderful
still so
people.
nice for us to see that person, that one person who comes in and says, well, I haven't been here before, but I hear you do computer training, or the person who shows up for the movie who doesn't usually come in for that, but then ends up coming every week because they
Right.
do get connected with a group that might enjoy the same things as they do.
I'm very concerned moving forward about funding.
We
And-
are too.
And the reason I'm concerned is because unless someone walks into a council on aging, a good one, or unless somebody walks into a veterans clinic or walks in to see their veterans agent, they can't possibly understand the good that's being done on a minute-to-minute basis. They can't possibly understand the lives that are being enriched,
Right.
or even, not to over-dramatize it, the lives that are being saved
True.
by walking into a senior center or a veterans clinic. And I worry that as the policy makers in Washington decide how much they're going to cut the federal budget by, as we know, that all runs downhill.
Right.
It diminishes our capacity on the state level, which is going to diminish our capacity on the local level. And I worry that the policymakers in Washington don't quite understand the cause and effect. Now, don't misunderstand me. We need more fiscal sanity in Washington. Every American believes that.
Yeah.
But I hope that they get their priorities right. Personally, I'd rather see us focus at home a bit more
Right.
and not focus as much abroad.
Right.
Well, certainly locally, having just had our town meeting in Duxbury, but not only do we have the seniors themselves, the older adults who do come to the center and are active or come to the center and are simply amazed at how much we do and say, we are so lucky. The town at large says we are so lucky that we did this 10 years ago, that we aren't worried then now about having to do it.
Right.
That we have it and we've done a good
And
job
we have
at
the
maintaining.
programs
Yeah,
established.
established. So it's we heard that a lot this last week. That thank God it
I
was
think
built.
about it a lot.
Right.
What are the biggest challenges that our seniors are going to face in the next decade? I mean, if we talked about this 10 years ago, it may not have been Medicare. It may not have been health insurance. It may not have even been housing as much as it is now.
Right.
So those are the issues for today.
Right.
We're living much longer. Seniors, I met with people in your senior center a week or two ago that were 93 years old. I've met people in your senior center that had their 100th birthday.
Right.
And so Americans, I guess the population of the world is living longer. What are going to be the issues of tomorrow?
I think some of the issues are going to be the same issues that we have today. Taxes are going to be a challenge for seniors to stay in their home, and everybody wants to age in place and to make their homes safe so that they can age in place, and they want to be active part of the community in the way that they can do that. By partaking in activities, they may start out as a younger senior volunteering, and we're so fortunate. We have over 240 volunteers who give a huge amount of time at our senior center, and that's one reason why it's so active. So programs, activities, keeping people engaged in the community. Transportation is going to be an issue. As you live longer, you may not want to drive, but to have that resource so you can participate.
Great. Well, I do want to talk about lifelong learning.
Okay.
And the reason I want to talk about it is I have this belief that there needs to be some sort of intergenerational connection between our youth and our aging population. Our youth can give that aging population meaning, life, vitality, respect, support on basic things, and that senior population can give our youth perspective on history, on American values, family values if they weren't privileged enough to develop them at home, and can share things with them. Now in Plymouth, the Council on Aging is going up near the high school.
Right, which I think is fabulous.
And it's a model that I just strongly believe in, and I'm asking the school building assistance program, the SBA, to include that in their model school program, because I think if we can connect the intergenerational populations,
Right.
there's going to be a mutual benefit that is going to be phenomenal. And I'd like to talk more about that in the legislature, because I think it's not a minor thing. It's not about cost cutting. It's not about being more efficient so we're building multiple properties on one piece of land. I think there's some real cultural value that's going to come from that. When I see kids going into Council on Aging's and singing at Christmas time,
Right.
that's beautiful. But I'd love to see more seniors go into schools and do reading and speak to civics classes and speak to high school children about history that
Right.
they're perhaps not getting because of MCAS
Right.
as much as they should be getting, or civic involvement, the role of town meeting, things like that. I'd love to see that in the model in the future. I really would.
That's true. I mean, we get a lot of volunteers who are coming out of the high school, whether it's for the Honor Society or whether it's through their church. And so they do interact with the seniors on that basis. But we would love to start some programs where we go there.
With local school children.
Absolutely.
Well, once I get started on issues of the day in your continuous learning program, I won't stop. So I'm going to ask you before I start. I'm going to ask you before we start, before I start talking about, tell me about your continuous learning program.
Okay, we're in our 5th year of operation. We've had 10 semesters. We've offered over 40 different classes in history, art, math, science, literature, poetry, topics of the
Politics.
day, current events, and we're thrilled. The neat thing about this program is it's completely volunteer run. Everything we do at the Senior Center, we couldn't do without volunteers. They are such an integral part of our organization. It was a volunteer who brought the idea to us and said, I think there's seniors or community members who'd like to give back and offer higher level learning. So our first term we offered 3 courses, and we really weren't sure how it would go. All the classes sold out, and we knew we had a hit. And it's just grown. This last term, we've had 13 courses, and we're so pleased you're one of our instructors. And your class, as you know, is a great time, and people are learning and engaged and really sharing, and it's a wonderful experience.
It sure is. It is for me as well.
We've been lucky to have the facilitators' interest in contributing through their classes. At first, we needed to know people. We needed people to know people and make an ask. Would they become involved? And now it seems that they're asking us.
Which is
Could
wonderful.
we offer this class because I have an expertise and I'd like to share it? And that's what we were hoping. And that's
When I
what
was
we are.
leaving your building this morning, I ran into a lady who was attending the class of the court artist.
Oh, yes, Jane.
Jane Flavel Collins.
Okay. And if you didn't hear me, folks, it's the court artist who does, you see them in the courtroom when the camera is not allowed
And she's
in.
on the news. She's
And
the
she's
person.
on the news.
Right.
And I thought to myself, what do you do in the second class? After you demonstrate all your artwork, after you exhibit, what do you do? And I didn't know until I was told this by a participant today, that she goes through each trial.
Right.
And she talks about what goes on in the trial and what it felt like. And through her pictures,
Right.
brings you through the process of the trial.
Right.
I want to take that course. I mean, that is
Yes,
fascinating.
they have loved that.
There's
That-
some great courses. Like this time, there's the 4 Gospels, the eyewitness of the gospel. I mean, we do everything from religion to, we cover it all, which is really exciting.
It really is.
So there's something out there for everyone. And if we don't have it, let us know and we'll start it. I think that's the nice thing about a senior center.
Well, what I've enjoyed about it, that this is the, I don't know, is it the third or the fourth time I've
I
taught?
think this is the 4th.
Fourth
Probably.
time I've taught it, and for those of you who haven't heard about it, it's a program where we start off by saying, what if you're wrong? And I ask people to allow themselves to let their paradigms be challenged on issues of the day. Because so often than not, people stop learning and they draw a conclusion.
Yes.
And they're convinced, as they get stuck in concrete, that they're right. And so the dialogue stops. And that's typically when the name calling starts.
Right.
And the judgmental behavior and the vitriolic wording begins. So I asked them to consider the prospect that maybe they're wrong. And we take all of the issues, and there's a punchline here, we take all of the issues and we break them down into good information. Not to convince them of my ideology. That's not as important to me as it is that they make up their own minds based
Right.
upon information. It's based upon my belief that when reasonable people look at good data, they reach a similar conclusion. Or they can agree to disagree in a very civil way. So after the third class, they said to me, Representative, this is exciting, and you're right. You've made us think differently, and you've made us really slow down. I've actually got them listening to CSNBC and Fox News at the same time. I want them to flip back and forth to see how each station reports on the same story. I asked them to buy the Globe and the Herald so they can read both sides of the issue instead of just buying the side that supports their pre-existing paradigm.
Right.
And they said, this is all very good, and we've changed our mind, but how about if there was a Republican in the room? You're a Democrat. How about if there's a Republican in the room? Would it still be as civil? I said, I suspect so. So as you know,
Right.
in
Which
this
is
class,
the best.
I asked Representative Dan Webster, a very conservative Republican, to join me as we teach the class. And today was our last class. And the folks are amazed at how many things Dan and I agree on because we're just looking at the same information.
Right.
And we go there together and we leave together. And we're civil and we're respectful. And I will say this to you, we do this, Vinny DiMacedo and I do the same thing here in Plymouth.
Great.
And it just shows that people can honestly disagree without being disagreeable. And when they look at the same data, we find that there's less for us to disagree about.
Exactly.
It's a great model, and it has encouraged more participation because everybody knows that
Right.
not only would their viewpoints be heard and,
Yep.
and
And I'm delighted that Danny's really coming along, too. He's learning a lot. He's growing by the day.
And the scary thing is that what he says about you too,
Exactly.
right?
Now, we only have a minute left, and so I want to close by just really congratulating both of you.
thank you.
Thank you.
I've watched up close what you do every day, and I admire what you do every day. And, we often say that some people do God's work, and they do it with such class and distinction. And the two of you fall into that category. I've never seen either one of you have a bad day there. Now, I know they exist, but you're always smiling, you're always bringing life to people, and my hat's off to you. You really should be very proud of what you do there.
We feel lucky to do it.
Very fortunate.
Yeah.
That's right. We do feel lucky, and I think that's what gets us through every day.
That's
Well,
right.
thank you so much. And after
Thank you for having us.
After redistricting, if I am not honored enough to have Duxbury, I'll still stop by whenever I need a pick-me-up.
We
Perfect.
would miss
We would
you.
love
I
to
hope
have you.
so. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, and
Thank
thanks,
you so
thanks
much.
for joining us today.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good to see you, Joanne.
Take care.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you very much for joining us today, whenever this shows. We appreciate you sitting in, and I hope you learned a little bit about the work the Council on Aging's across Plymouth County do every single day to enrich the lives of those people that are most important to us. So thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you.